I want to make sure that every last one of you is here. Welcome once again to all my Facebook friends. I want to make sure that you're all here right on board with me before we start the show. It's going to be a fantastic show tonight. We've got a very special guest in the house, and he's going to be sharing an amazing story. I think sometimes what happens with so many of us, we have all of these little pockets of stories that we share with each other. And sometimes it all comes together in one package so that we can reflect on our lives. We can look at these situations we're in. We can learn from them. We can be grateful for what we have. We can look forward to the future. We can change some things around, change the dynamics. Whatever you got to do to get to the next level, that's what I'm a part of tonight. So we have our very, very good friend, Robert Crown. He's here with us. He's going to be sharing his story. I want to make sure that you're all on board, so just say hello. Hi, just say hi, and where you're logging in from, whether it's from Barbados, Jamaica, Grenada, Antigua, wherever you are, just put your name and also put your country. Very, very important. So I just want to say big ups, big ups, big ups to Maxine. Trudy King is on board. Patrick Snare, he's all the way from Ottawa. Thank you for being there. Jalea Bess, I know she's from Barbados. Just make sure that you put your name. Yep, I got your name there. When you say hello Barbados or say hello Trinidad. Hey, we're going to start in just a moment, so make sure you call your friends because this is going to be a dynamic show. Yeah. Looking forward to seeing you. I truly hate those false starts. We've been having one every night, and I don't.
The Lord has come to give you life more abundantly. He's come to heal your wounded soul and set your spirit free. Mother, sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get alive. Oh, girlfriend, get alive.
TV show. So glad to have you in the house. I'm Carita Dee, of course, and it's another great day that God has made, and we're going to have some joy up in the house today. Hey, I just want to say big ups to all my girls and the guys who are always locked in and locked on with me every night. You, my diehard faithful Ace Boone Coon, all that in a bag of chips, folks. And I'm always glad to have you right here with me. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, just want to say hello. Glad to have you on board because this is going to be a fantastic show tonight. Just grab your popcorn, get your juice, get whatever it is to make you feel comfortable because you're going to get a lot of information tonight and you're going to get to learn some things. And maybe, just maybe, it will change your life and draw you closer to God. We've got a very, very special guest in the house tonight. His name is Robert Crown. He's going to be with me in just a moment. I wanted to just take a moment and just reach out to my Facebook friends because you guys are so diehard loyal that I got to always acknowledge you. So I want to say hi to Radon Barkley. Radon Barkley is, where are you from, Radon? I'm not sure where you're from. Tyler Bell says, yep, logging in from Barbados. Woohoo! And Andrea Best, not sure where you're from, so you got to put right there where you're from. Maxine Cheltenham, she's from New York. Yeah, that's right. Oh, woo! Big up to the Big Apple. And also, Andrea Best says Barbados, Barbados. Leslie August says, hello, Barbados. Mavis Smith, I don't know where you're from. Okay, Ann Edwards, hi cuz, that's my cuz all out there in North Carolina. Glad to have you. Hey, mwah. Love to the little one, probably getting a lot bigger right now. And just keep them coming, people, keep them coming. Marcia Aline says, good night, love you, sweetheart. Right here in Barbados, love Marcia Aline. Who else is out there with your? If you're ready, just lock on with me because I'm gonna be laying it out tonight. I want to make sure that you guys are always with me. For the past few weeks, as we've been doing this show, many of you have been sharing your stories with me. You've been locked in and locked on. You've been inboxing me. You've been sharing when we shared on adultery. You shared your adultery stories. Devastating, but so, so moving. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you once again for allowing me to be a part of what God is doing to heal your life. So thank you once again. For the rest of you, keep them coming. I always appreciate, my girl says, love you more. I love you more. So I just thank you. I thank you so much for just staying there with me as we go through these scenarios that we live here in the Caribbean. One of the things that God moved on me when I came back to Barbados and I came back to the Caribbean to do this and spread this word throughout the Caribbean. I remember, if you remember, one of the areas that I dealt with very extensively when I came in was domestic abuse, because it was rampant, and it still is very, very rampant here in the Caribbean. Another thing that we're going to be talking about quite frequently is incest. Incest is a huge thing here in the Caribbean, and it's one of those well-kept secrets that no one wants to talk about. One of the things that I learned along the way, though, anything unchecked increases. Anything unchecked increases. So if you've got something and you don't check it, you don't expose it, it's going to increase. If you've got some sort of mark on your leg, or you bumped your leg or whatever, and you don't check it out, it's going to just increase. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. So sometimes you just got to expose the thing so that you can get to the next level. You can either get healed, or you can have it removed altogether. Tonight, I've got all of my friends here. Mavis Smith, who's right here in Barbados, saying hello. Monique Bailey, I don't know where you're from, so you got to tell me where you're from, Monique. I just want to know just want to make sure that I'm touching base with all my friends. And as you are here with us tonight, and Robert is going to come on in a little while, you're going to find out some amazing things. Sometimes the reason that I bring shows like this is because we have our own little worlds that we live in. And so often we think we're the only one going through it. And as a result, we don't share it with anyone. We don't get help from anyone. We don't talk to anyone. And then lo and behold, our whole life is falling apart. One of the things that I came to do, as I came with this sword to the Caribbean that God gave me, that spiritual sword, one of the things that I came to do is expose. And because I have a grace for transparency, I live my life fully transparent. I came into Barbados. I was very transparent. I wrote a book about low self-esteem, adultery. I wrote a book about everything in my life. And so there's nothing that I keep hidden. So it's not unusual for me to suddenly come on and say, hey, this is going on. I've been doing that for years since God told me to. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to have somebody else come in from time to time tonight, in the case of Robert Crown, who's going to share with his own story. He's going to expose himself. He's going to talk about his stuff. And it is a fascinating story. It is a story that's going to absolutely blow your mind, simply because so many of us are dealing with the same thing, but we don't know that, so we don't get any help. So we're going to help you tonight. So if you want to stay with me tonight, just get yourself comfortable, go call a friend, make sure that you find out, because with whatever it is that you're going through, we want to be a part of what God is doing in your life. Listen, there is nothing in this world that you cannot change. Maybe you're feeling stuck. Maybe you feel that you don't have enough money. Maybe it is that your marriage is going through a bad time. Your children are giving problems. Your career is not getting off the ground. Your children won't go to school. Whatever it is, we want to be a part of what is happening in your life to get to the next level. Sometimes all we need is a little bit of information. Did you see that little clip that we put on about the hijackal? Well, we're going to be putting that show up. We had a little bit of a difficulty with it. I'm still working on it. But we're going to put that show up in a little while, because there was so much information in there about the characteristic of someone who is an adulterer, somebody who cheats all the time. And so we wanted to find out more and more about that so we could explain to women, because for the most part, what we will say is, oh, yeah, that's what men do. That's not true. God did not make us to do that. God made us so that there's always a way of escape. So if that's the case, we've got to find out why such and such is happening. And that's why we've got our friend Robert in tonight. Robert is going to be talking to me in just a moment. He's going to be here in a few seconds, just getting it. He's just creeping his way in. And he's going to be talking to me and sharing with me and sharing with you, so that we can see all the ways that we are dealing with things. And maybe, just maybe, we might feel a little more thankful after tonight. Want to say once again, good night to Pink Franklin and Jennifer Holder. And where are you guys? I don't know where you guys are. Sharon Sandiford from Barbados. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm going to be coming back. I got my Facebook crew on with me. Hey, I like it when my girls are all together, and my guys. I'm going to come back now with Robert Crown. and you're going to hear the real McCoy from someone who's gone through a lot.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get a life. Oh, girlfriend, get a life.
So choka is basically roasted vegetables. I'm not sure how they came up with the fish choka, but I know choka is usually vegetables that are roasted on an open flame and then mixed with seasonings and aromatics, and it's chunkied with hot oil. So in this case, the fish is mixed with some onion, garlic, some fresh herbs, pepper, and then it's chunkied with hot oil.
Now wait till me gone. Now wait till your family dead and gone. They make us unite as one. Me want you call up your family, call up your friends, and tell them see you love them.
Strength and the most high. It's the work of the most high. When I lie, some see it is devil, read it and it tell you why. The victory's right.
Is away no fear go. Me too cute away to Kia go. I am so blessed. I am so stress free.
This hurricane tip comes to you compliments the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Be prepared. Check into your home and auto insurance. Confirm that the policies are valid and the coverage is appropriate.
Rita, so you're also a vegan.
Okay, I'm vegetarian. I would be vegan if I didn't eat cheese. That's my only, if I didn't eat cheese, I would be completely vegan. That's the only animal byproduct that I do consume. So if I can just cut the cheese, I know it sounds weird, but if I could just leave it out my diet and cut the cheese, I would be vegan. And honestly, if I think about it too much, I can't have, like if I eat cheese pizza and I'm like, okay, this can't, I start going through the chain of the process.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get a life. Oh, girlfriend, get a life.
Well, you're back with me, Carita Dee. So glad to have you in the house. And of course, I told you that I've got Robert Crown here with me tonight. He is a very special guest. Hey, he is right here with me. So I just want to say hi to Robert, and so glad that he's here. Hey, Robert, how you doing?
I'm great, Carita. Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, listen, we just a cool group here. We just hang out with each other. Sit back, enjoy yourself, just relax, because that's how we flow. Okay.
All right. Sounds
All right.
great.
Good. So I was telling everybody just a little earlier that you have had quite an eventful life, and a lot of us sometimes think that our lives are so bad. We complain every single day, but we have no idea what other people are going through. One of the things that I learned about you is that it all started at a very early part of your life. And of course, we are all anxious to know about that situation when you were very young. What was going on in your life? What started this all?
Well, the actual event took place when I was 11 years old. Prior to that, I grew up in a dysfunctional family. My father was an alcoholic. My parents used to fight a lot. My dad was jealous of my mom, insecure. So it was a pretty rough childhood. They did take it out on us a lot of the times, emotionally, physically. But that one day when I was 11 years old, I got up for school like any other day. And my mother told me and my two sisters that we weren't going to school today. We were going to go see a show instead.
Right.
And like any kid that doesn't have to go to school, we were excited.
Woohoo!
You know, woohoo, no school. So my mom said, okay, we're going to go to a show. I'm going to go out and get gas for the car. When I get home, we're going to leave. So my mom went out. She got gas for the car. She came back home, backed the car in the driveway, closed the overhead door, or backed the car in the garage, closed the overhead door, and then came upstairs and offered us some ice cream before we went. Now, just to kind of give you an idea of how our house was, when you walk in the front door, there's the dining room, the living room, and the kitchen. You go up 5 stairs, there's a bedroom. You go down 5, there's the basement. Then you walk across the basement, you go up 4 stairs to the garage. Mm-hmm. So we went upstairs, we got our ice cream. My sister got theirs. They went downstairs. And I asked my mother, I said, what are these little things, white things crushed up in my ice cream with an S on them? And she said, oh, that S, that just means you're special. So me being a good kid, you know, I figured she was right. So I just went downstairs to eat my ice cream. So in a few moments, my mom came down with a blanket, hammer, and nails. And I said, what's that for, Mommy?
Wow.
And she began to nail the blanket up against the doorway. And she said, this is a surprise for your daddy when he gets home from work today.
Wow.
And I said, what surprise is that? And she'll go, oh, you'll see. So after hanging the blanket on the doorway, my mother walked out the basement up into the garage, and then she started the car, went out the back access door, and around the house to the kitchen. So the fumes started to come in from the garage, and I yelled up to my mom, I think the car's warmed up, can we go now? And there wasn't any answer. So then after a few minutes, I could actually see the fumes billowing in from the garage, and my eyes were getting blurry, and it was hard to see. They were even burning a little bit. And then I could taste the filthy carbon monoxide in my mouth, and it coated the inside of my nose. And I started wondering what was happening, and then I had this virgin thought enter my mind. And it said, this is what death feels like. Ooh. You're going to die.
Wow.
And then I just closed my eyes, and I just started fading off sleeping. And then this voice popped in my head and it said, get up and go for the door. Go for the door.
Wow.
I wasn't panicked or anything, but I just stood up and I just obeyed the voice.
Wow.
And I started trying to stand up, but by this time I was intoxicated by the fumes and I could barely stand. My knees were buckling with every step. And at this point, I approached my sisters that were lying on the floor, lifeless at this time. And I really wanted to stop and help them, but I knew if I would stop and try to get them, it would surely be the death of us all. Because I barely had enough strength to stand. I certainly didn't have enough strength to help them out. So I made the decision to go for the door. So I finally made it to the stairs and I tried to get up, but I couldn't. So I had to lift my leg up by putting my hands under my thigh to the stair, and I grabbed a hold of the railing and tried pulling myself up. Wow. At this point, the car was right there and the fumes were just pouring all over me like a wet blanket. I finally managed to get up, grab the doorknob, pull myself up, and was fumbling around with the door and finally got it open. And I was standing on the threshold, literally, of life and death. And I tried to take a deep breath and get some of that fresh, crisp, clean air in my lungs. And this was 1973 when I was 11 years old, so not many people were home during the day.
That's right.
And we also had a 6-foot privacy fence in the back, so you couldn't see back there.
Right.
So I wasn't sure what to do, so all I could do is try to muster up enough strength to yell for help, when I just kind of went, help. And that's all it was. And so then I tried to do it again, right? Every ounce of energy I had left and just a little meager help came out of me. And it wasn't loud enough to wake a sleeping baby. Then all of a sudden, I felt this piercing grip around both my arms, and somebody began shaking me violently, screaming, Robert, Robert.
Wow.
And my eyes were still burning, and I couldn't see.
Yes.
And I couldn't make out the voice either. And I tried focusing my eyes and realized it was my mother. And a flurry of thoughts like raced through my mind, like, where have you been? Why did you leave me? Why did you let this happen to me?
Right.
And then the grave reality set in, and it's like, is she going to finish me off? And at that point, it apparently snapped her out of it. She went in the house, called my dad. He came home from work a while later, opened all the windows, called the police, the ambulances. My sisters went to the hospital. I ended up staying back. But yeah, that was at 11.
That was at, oh my God, and to start life at such a tender age, because most 11-year-olds are playing and having fun and out there with their friends and doing what 11-year-olds do, and you were on the brink of death. That's what's so amazing about this. So we're going to be coming back and talking to you some more about what happened right after that with your parents and you right here on the Carita Dee TV show. Coming back real soon.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get alive. Oh, girlfriend, get alive.
For close to a half century, the Sam McQuaid Charity Softball Tournament has been staged in Bismarck, Mandan, North Dakota. This team is made up of a group of United States soldiers who paid the ultimate price on the battlefield.
This hurricane tip comes to you compliments the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Be prepared. Keep phone lines free for important calls.
And that's a flour. Baking. Now the ghee. On your hands like that. So make the balls roll nicely and smooth.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get alive. Oh, girlfriend, get alive.
Well, you're back with me, Carita Dee, right here on the Carita Dee TV show. So glad to have you back in the house. Want to say a big, big shout out to Sharon Sandiford, who's always locked on with us, and Pink from New York. That's right, Pink's in New York. And Judy Davis and Ann Gibbs, and also Lanitha Seeley, Jeanette Mitchell, always on board with me. Hey, girl. And Pauline Briggs. We're talking to our friend Robert Crown now. He's now part of our group. And we're hearing this amazing story about this attempted diabolical plot by his mother to kill, obviously to kill him and his siblings. Robert, as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking to myself, you know, sometimes you've got bad mothers and then you've got bad mothers. What on earth, now that all of this time has gone by, what prompted her? What was going through her mind? Did you learn anything? Why this? Why would she want to kill her children?
Well, it's really a mystery because I used to have bad childhood asthma, so I'd have to stay in the house during some summer times. I couldn't go outside, and my mother would always be nurturing and caring and taking care of me all the time. Mm-hmm. My parents lived with my paternal grandparents, and my mother had a difficult time getting along with my mother-in-law because she was very young when she started having children. She was 16 years old when she had my sister, 19 when she had me. So she was just a kid herself, like a lot of young mothers. And it's really a rough life, rough responsibility to have, especially because you're still a kid yourself.
You're still a baby.
And it's hard to raise a child.
Yes.
So that.
Never figured it quite out why she did what she did. She never said.
Well, about 5 years ago, I finally asked her about it. Why did you decide to kill your children? And she told me because it was my dad's mother. Mm-hmm. And I guess what set her off is what my mother said to my mom. And that was I'm not going to repeat it on here, but it was basically being worthless. So
yes.
I guess that's made her snap, and she devised this premeditated murder plot to kill me and my sisters.
Isn't it amazing, though, that when you're going through, and I know a lot of the girlfriends can identify with this, and we see this from time to time, that when people are going through massive amounts of trauma and stress, a lot of times it's not to inflict harm on themselves, but it's almost like, well, I'm going to make you suffer more by harming my children. Somehow it's this reverse thing. It's not like, well, I'm going to take myself out. You're going to cry because of that. I'm going to hurt the children so that it's kind of double punishment.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe in this case that's what it was, to get back at my dad and my grandmother.
Now,
Absolutely.
that was back in the 70s, correct?
Yes.
So what
Yes.
sort of punishment came about as a result of that? Because obviously now this is attempted murder.
Yeah. Actually, the 70s was a pretty loose time with stuff. So nothing really happened to my mother. She went to a psych hospital for a few months. That was it. Came back home after that. My father and us children, we had no therapy, no counseling, no nothing. It just kind of got swept under the rug. And in fact, until I finished my book last year in November, right before I finished it, I just then spoke to my sisters about what happened in that April day in 1973.
Now, here, obviously there's a difference between a young boy talking about the situation and obviously your sisters as well. Do your sisters see it as an attempted murder plot? Because that's what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. They see it that way. Absolutely. Yeah. Their take on what happened is a little different than mine. I found it really interesting. But yeah, it's very interesting. And yeah, they definitely realized that it was a premeditated murder plot to kill all of us.
I want to go back real quick because I don't know if everyone caught it, but you saw these little things in the top of the ice cream and it said S. Obviously, that was a sleeping pill.
Somnic sleeping pills. That's what they were. They were crushed up in there.
Okay, and you could still see the S.
I saw the S, yeah, on one of them I could still see the S, and I just thought it was candy in there. She put candy in there for us too, so.
Right, that because there are these little candies that do have letters on them, right?
Right.
Wow,
Right.
wow, amazing. So here you are, okay, at the very start of your life, you're going through this trauma, and right after that, your mother goes through some psychiatric counseling. She comes back into the house, I assume, and you guys continue to live as normal.
As normal as you could. I mean, we were all walking on eggshells for a little while. I'm sure it was difficult for my mother as well. After that, I think it was about 1 to 2 years later, she divorced my dad. And then she kept the house and, my sisters stayed with my mom. I went with my dad and then bounced back and forth between the two parents for a while.
Mm-hmm. And what's frame of mind now? Because having gone through something as traumatic as that, and I know that a lot of the girlfriends and the guy friends who are watching, we go through various stages of trauma in our lives. Many of us do not share the trauma like you are so openly sharing it today. I meet many women who have gone through incest, they've gone through sexual, they've gone through rape by their mother or their father, whatever situation, and they have just borne it, they just continued. It's almost like they suppress it. That's what we do. And so we get to the point now where you're past that first trauma and you're trying to get along, and here you are being bounced back and forth. What happens then?
All right. Well, I didn't really, obviously now I have a great idea of what happened and even about the trauma that maybe we can touch on later.
Sure.
But I didn't realize what was happening to me back then. I didn't realize this was as a result of what had happened to me, because through this experience, I lost trust. I rebelled against authority. I started fighting. I did poorly in school. I didn't have many friends. I was kind of isolated, depressed, reclusive.
Yeah.
I ended up dropping out of school. At 15 years old, I took my mother's car out for a spin with my friend, and we got further and further out of the house. We were just supposed to be around the neighborhood. We got further away from the house, and we ended up totaling the car out. And I told my friend, I said, I'm not going home. My mom might kill me. And
No kidding.
I wasn't exaggerating. I didn't know how she was going to handle it.
You'd had one experience with that before. Didn't want to repeat of it.
Absolutely. So with $20 in my pocket from Chicago, Illinois, I took off for Florida.
Wow.
And when I got down to Florida, I lived on the streets for 3 months.
Wait, hold up. Let's back up for a minute, because a lot of the folks down here don't get the parameters of that. Chicago, Illinois to Florida is about
1,200, 1,300 miles to Daytona is where I went. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
about
that's
1,200 miles hitchhiking all the way down to Florida at 15 years old.
Jesus. Anything could have happened to you along the way. I mean, that is like a walking, suicide. Hitchhiking your way into, 1,300 miles into Florida.
So I get down there, I meet this guy at McDonald's. He's got a dog, and he trains these guard dogs. And he goes,
All right. Hold up for one
He goes,
second because we're going to come back. This is getting kind of juicy.
Okay.
I got to get some drink. I'm going to come back real quick. Hey, we're going to come back in just a moment.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get a life. Oh, girlfriend, get a life.
Guyana's first carnival experience has been dubbed a success. The festival, which kicked off on May 18th, climaxed on Sunday with the parades of the bands. Thousands of Guyanese from all corners of the country, as well as a large amount of tourists, on Saturday braved the weather and took to the streets of Georgetown to get a glimpse of the beautiful and earthily decked out men and women in their brightly colored costumes to celebrate the country's 52nd independence anniversary.
This hurricane tip comes to you compliments the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Be prepared. Avoid sightseeing.
It's not been easy keeping that publicly owned community station alive. And it's part of a network that's seen its share of troubles. Can you talk about that? Why do you think it's been so hard?
I mean, it is so important, Pacifica's roots, going back to World War II and the first Pacifica station, KPFA in Berkeley, founded by a war resister who came out of the detention camps named Lou Hill, who said there's got to be a media outlet.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get a life. Oh, girlfriend, get a life.
Well, you're back with me, Carita Dee. So glad to have you back. All the Facebook folks are coming in and coming on. I got some folks here from New Jersey. Leslyn McCollin is right there from New Jersey. Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you on board. And, of course, Tyler Bell, always on board. Tyler has got a question for you, though, Jonathan. Excuse me, Robert, before you go any further, I'm calling you Jonathan because you look like a friend of mine. Robert, his question is, how did you cope with your home life for 5 years after that incident?
Well, it was really difficult. I don't know if I really did cope with it. I try to do it the best I can, but during that time I was moving back and forth with between my mother and my father, and my dad also, you know, he didn't have any money. He was working, they got divorced. I was sleeping on the floor with him, and then when things didn't work out with him, I went back to my mother. I just tried to do the best I could. I mean, we didn't have any therapy or counseling or anything like that, so I just I didn't really pay attention to myself back then as much as I do right now.
Right.
So I just tried to listen to myself and thought to do what I thought was right, the best that I could.
Right.
I had a lot of self-doubt, insecurity, self-esteem issues, self-confidence issues, as you can imagine.
Yes.
You know, if your own mother tries to kill you, you
Absolutely.
know, you can't be worth that much, right?
Right.
So
you know, your
I just
story,
did the best I could.
Your story reminds me so much of a movie that I watched called Antoine Fisher. It's just bringing me back to this movie with Antoine Fisher. I don't know if you've seen that movie with Denzel Washington and Derek Luke. Amazing movie, by the way. And it just shows me that the delicate nature of a child at 11 years old to be faced with that kind of trauma of their mother trying to kill them and then having to deal with this low self-worth. And then you're on this trip now to Florida. What happens on the way down there? What happened? I mean, did you get picked up by somebody?
Yeah, I got picked up by a few people. I made it down there relatively fast.
Wow.
You know, this one trucker picked me up. We stopped to get dinner. You know, I bought a burger. And he said, "Where are you going, kid?" And I said, "I'm going down to Florida." And, you know, so I pulled the money out to pay for my food. And he goes, "I'll pay it for you. You're going to need your money, you know." But he didn't tell me, you know, he didn't say, like, "Where are you from? You know, let me take you back home," or anything. It's just like, "Okay, you're on your way."
It's amazing how children can be so innocent, because do you realize the danger that you put yourself in? I mean, you know, when you think about it today and you have your own children, that a trucker, you know, I mean, my God, what are the things that could have happened in that truck? I mean, unbelievable. And so you got to Florida pretty okay.
Yeah, I got to Florida okay, pretty fast. Within 24 hours, I made it down there. So I got to Daytona. That's the only place I knew. I was there the year before with my dad for a weekend. So I get to this McDonald's. I see this guy with the dog, and he goes, "Kid, where are your parents?" And I said, "My parents aren't here." And he goes, "Oh, you're a runaway, huh?" And I said, "Yes."
Yes.
He says, let me buy you a bus ticket and send you home because you're going to age too quickly down here."
Right.
I said, "Age? What are you talking
He
about?"
didn't, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know then at that moment, but I certainly do now what he meant. So anyway, a couple days later, slept on the beach for a few nights, and then I saw him again at the McDonald's, and he said, "Hey, you can stay at my house." Wow. Well, it turns out this guy dealt with drugs and sold pot on the boardwalk down to Florida to tourists. And so it says, if you want to stay here and earn your keep, you start selling the pot to the tourists. So in the house, they had all these your druggies, like the long, greasy hair, skinny. They all look like heroin addicts. So I ended up started doing that. And then after that, I basically got all of my clothes stolen, all of my clothes from that house. Everybody stole my clothes, so I had to borrow clothes. And this was about 2 months in. And one of the people in the house several times ended up sexually abusing me as well. And they said that he would help me, but he ended up sexually abusing me. So after about 3 months of being down there total, I said I had enough of this, and I went back home. I got caught actually in Florida. I was walking on a bridge. I didn't get picked up. I was hitchhiking home, and I think I was on a bridge in Jacksonville, and it seemed like I was walking forever. And then this car stopped, and then the lights came on, and it was a cop. And I thought, oh, man, I'm not going with him. So I got up on the railing, and I was going to jump over into the water beneath, but I didn't know. I couldn't see the bottom. I didn't know how deep it was. And I didn't know where I was. And I just said, man, I'm tired of running. So I just got me. He said, where are you going? And I said, I'm home. And he said, I can give you a ride home. And I said, well, I'm going to Chicago. And he said, can't give you a ride there.
That's right.
Yeah. So he locked me up in a juvie center overnight, and they flew me back home the next day.
So when you get back home, now you've gone on basically an excursion, an adventure. Unfortunately, a very, very bad adventure because it costs you parts of your sexuality.
Right.
How are you functioning now that you're back home, having been scarred again?
Yeah, it was interesting. I knew what the age part means. You're going to age too much when you're here. When I got to school, I wanted to go back to school right away and try to get some normalcy back in my life. But when I got there, all the frivolous stuff that the kids were talking about and doing and saying, and just after what I've been through, it just seems so meaningless.
Yes.
I ended up dropping out of school. After that, shortly after that, actually the following year I dropped out. And that was basically it. I still was just kind of making my own way and just trying to cut my own path and trying to make sense out of stuff. When I was 19 years old, I met this girl and I fell in love for the very first time. And it was really a powerful relationship because she was kind of intuitive, and it was like nobody I ever met before. And we had this great relationship. I dated her for 10 months, and I decided I was going to ask her to marry me the following month. This was May of '81. I was going to ask her to marry me on her birthday, which was the following month. But she always wanted to go up to Wisconsin and drinking, because the drinking age was younger then.
Right.
And so we got the call one day from my best friend, Bob, and we're just up in my room having fun, passing the day away. And when we got the call and I went up to ask her, the whole mood changed. And this whole vibration came over her, and it kind of came over me too. When I looked at her, I knew something was going to happen. But I didn't have the guts or the courage to ask her or to talk about it. I just thought maybe it was just like some fleeting thing. I didn't really trust my higher self or my intuition. And I just kind of let it go. But oddly enough, I was going to ask her, I said, do you want to make love to me one last time? Like one last time. Wow.
You actually said the words, one last time.
I thought that. I didn't say it.
Oh, you thought the words, one last time.
Yeah, I thought it, yeah. And so after that, we took off for Wisconsin later that night, and went to a couple bars, and we were going to come home early
Oh
before
gosh,
the drunks.
this is getting juicy. This is getting juicy. I gotta grab something to drink. We're gonna come back. Go get you a drink, because it is getting good. Coming to the real good part right after this.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get a life. Oh, girlfriend, get a life.
This hurricane tip comes to you compliments the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Be prepared. Develop an emergency communications plan. Make sure all family members know what to do, especially children.
Resurf just takes on a whole community of its own, and what's so great is that it's a surf community that you're building in other countries and other areas, and you're bringing these group of people together, and they don't need to speak the same language, but they can surf and they can ride that surfboard.
This hurricane tip comes to you compliments the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Be prepared. Keep a working flashlight and batteries available during the hurricane season.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get a life. Oh, girlfriend, get a life.
Well, here we are, right here on the Carita Dee TV show. We've got our friend Robert here with us, Robert Crown, and he's telling us this fascinating story. One of the reasons that I like to bring people like Robert is because you just never know what people are going through and some of the lessons that you can learn from it. So we got Robert. Robert, you were just in the middle of telling us that juicy bit about making love to this girlfriend one last time.
We decided after getting the call we were going to go up to Wisconsin, and then my buddy borrowed his parents' car. They got a station wagon. I rode up behind the passenger. My girlfriend Carol rode behind the driver. I'm sorry, I rode behind the driver on the way there. She rode behind the passenger. So we get up there, went to a few bars. We're getting ready to leave, and we're looking like, where's Carol? Nobody could find her. And I had a lady check the ladies' room, and she said, no, nobody's in there. So I go outside, and I see our car in her distance, and I see her by the car standing there with her hand on the door handle with her head down. And I can still see her right now, and I know what was happening at this point. So we started going home, and when we got about 10 miles from my house, a car pulled up alongside of us and started like taunting us, you know, like speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. So then my friend Bob would slow down, and then that other car would slow down. Then we'd speed up, and then the other car would speed up. And then this went on for a little while. Then the car swerved over into our lane, and my friend missed it, and we were able to get back in our lane. I said, well, what should I? He said, what should I do? I said, well, let's try to lose him. You know, so he tried to step on the gas, and the other car just stayed with us. And the other car, again, swerved into our lane intentionally, knocked us off the road, and went over this grassy median and got broadsided by another car. My best friend, Bob, the driver, he was killed. My girlfriend, Carol, she was also killed. I was in the car, I suffered a broken femur. I was in the hospital a couple of weeks with internal injuries and my broken leg.
So you lost both your best friend and your girlfriend? Just immediately?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Immediately, yeah, they were both dead on the scene.
How do you keep your head together during something like this? Because, I mean, I'm just seeing the entire picture of your whole life, but obviously these are sequential and different things that are happening throughout your life, but decisions being made based on different things happening. And now you get to the point where you've lost someone. basically right there in front of you. How do you deal with that? I mean, you were what, 19, 20 years old?
19 years old.
19 years old.
It was, yeah, it was really tough because when you're young, you think you're invincible, right?
Yes.
So this is the first time I realized, hey, I'm not invincible. But it was really even more difficult because this is the first time I really had a good friend and somebody also who really loved me. And I knew she loved me. And, you know, I never knew that my mom really loved me after killing me, right?
Right.
So it's somebody that I really established a relationship with and trust. And it was devastating. It really hurt. It took me 6 months to physically recover. I don't know, probably about a month into it, I couldn't take it anymore. And I had these painkillers and I dumped them out and I had them all in my hand and I wanted to take them all. Yeah. And I started reflecting on what was happening and what happened, you know, why did she die? Mm-hmm. And I thought about the phone call and how we were in the bedroom and how we were all happy. Then she knew, like, at that moment, like the time came, right? So for me, the way that I understand it now is that this was like a soul contract or an agreement for her before she came into this life.
Yeah, gotcha.
To carry through.
Gotcha.
So this was kind of, for me, it was a way that I could justify her death, that she gave her life for me.
Yes.
She literally, she knew what she was doing. She gave her life for me.
Wow.
So when I had these pills.
Yeah, so when you, I'm sorry, go ahead. When you had the pills, because I'm hearing another reference in my head that I want to share with everybody, but you go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So then I had these pills in my head and I was going to take them and I thought about this and I didn't want her to die in vain. So then what I did is it made me stop, you know, it stopped. And I tried to figure out why she wanted me alive. And that was really the driving force to get me through other things in my life to figure out why she gave her life for me.
Yeah,
so
and that wasn't it.
I didn't want that to go into vain.
And that wasn't the end. I mean, here it was, you'd gone through all of that as a child with your mother. You'd gone down to Florida. You'd come back. You formulated some new relationships, which was, you know, the girlfriend. Obviously, you'd gone through the sexual trauma and the sexual abuse there in Florida. You come back now and you decided to quit school, okay? But you're still hanging around your friends. Now you lose good friends and you've got to bounce back from that. What got you, I mean, where did you go from there? Did you go back to school? Did you decide to, you know, how did you reintegrate back into the real world?
Well, what I did after that, it took me a while. I started working out a little bit more. I wanted to play, I liked football. I wanted to play football at the local community college. So I started getting some menial jobs, and I got a job at a gas station. That was my a job close to my house. I could walk to because I didn't have a car at the time. So when I got this job at this gas station, it was the middle of February in Chicago, and it was like we had
freezing.
like it was I don't know, 1982, 1983 maybe.
Wow.
1980, yeah, something like 1983 maybe. And we had probably 10 inches already on the ground, and it was, the wind was blowing sideways. There was nobody in the whole station, right? No cars on the road.
Right.
So all of a sudden, the door opens up, the wind blows in, and this girl walks in the station. Okay. And I'm just looking at this woman, and it's like, her looks are like uncanny. And I'm going, who is this person? And so I'm looking at her, and she's got long strawberry blonde hair, just like Carol's hair, identical. Her face, her features were just like Carol's.
Wow.
I swear that I was looking at Carol. It was just like her. It was unbelievable. This lady, she didn't have any boots on. She didn't have any gloves on. And she just walked in the station. There was no car. And I said, where did you come from? She says, oh, I work at the restaurant about 4 blocks away. And, you know, I asked her, how'd you get here? And she said, I walked. And then she unbuttoned her coat, and then she's wearing this uniform just like she worked at the restaurant, the same restaurant that Carol worked at.
Whoa, whoa. The same.
The same restaurant.
Kind of like do.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
that's exactly what it was.
I'm thinking to myself, if I saw somebody come in like that, that would like scare the living daylights out of me.
It was one of those. It was one of those scenes, definitely.
Okay, well we're definitely going to be coming back in just a moment because unbelievable. I want you to continue to talk about it because I just want to leave that right there with the girls. This deja vu moment that we get every so often in our lives. Coming right back, right after this.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get alive. Oh, girlfriend, get alive.
In Northern California, neighbors report a dog is trapped in a nearby concrete wash. The animal appears calm, but is unable to find a way out.
Well, somehow she got into the canal. They get into the canals. Canals are lined with algae.
And now will they be able to coordinate their efforts?
This hurricane tip comes to you compliments the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Be prepared. A hurricane watch means there is a possibility of a hurricane within 36 hours.
Transfer that to your salad bowl, and now we toast the nuts. Pour half a cup of sliced almonds into a dry skillet over medium-high heat and toss until they're golden and fragrant. It only takes a few minutes. Then transfer them to your salad bowl along with 3/4 cup of dried cranberries. Pour it over your salad and toss together until every bite is coated in that luscious, creamy dressing.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get alive. Oh, girlfriend, get alive.
Well, you're back with me, Carita Dee, and we're talking to Robert Crown. He is an amazing man. He's definitely more than a conqueror. And Robert, you were just talking about this woman coming through the door that looked just like. What was that saying to you? Because I've got some questions from some of the folks who are watching us live on Facebook. What was that saying to you, and what happened at that moment?
Well, that was saying to me, I asked her what her name was, and she told me, I think she said it was Eve. And I said, you remind me of somebody I used to know. And she was almost like expecting me to say that. And after that point, I wanted to ask her so many questions, but right after I asked her her name, she said, oh, my mom's here. And I said, where? She said, over in the parking lot over there. It was in the next plaza over. Mm-hmm. So she just kind of went out the door and faded to black, or faded to white, actually. Right. What I realized through that experience, it was Carol telling me that she was okay.
She was
that
okay.
I didn't have to worry.
That.
Yeah, so I kind of, that was really the turning point where I kind of loosened my grip on her a little bit, but I still used the experience of the accident and all of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, loosened her grip on her memory so I could function, but I used the experience. Yeah.
I get it. I get it. You were it was your way to release it. I've got a question from Jalea who says, what advice would you give kids that are going through trauma in their home environment right now? What advice would you give to them?
Well, this is going to, I don't know the level of people's understanding, but I'm going to tell you it from my understanding now going through all this thing. And also I was homeless in 2007 with my wife and 4 small children. So I've been through quite a bit.
You've been through a lot.
Yeah. So my understanding of how things are a lot different. The reason why, first of all, trauma, what is trauma? Trauma is an experience with a negative emotion attached to it, right?
Yes.
Usually a negative emotion. Mm-hmm. So if you neutralize the emotion, then all you have is the experience, okay? So it really determines on how you look at the situation that you're in. Mm-hmm. I could get into a lot greater detail, but I think what we have to do is we have to look at trauma in a different aspect than what we're taught in this world, okay?
Right. Quick question totally before, as you go through that. I got Pauline who is also asking, do you still love your mom?
Yeah, my mother and I get along great. She was over for the holidays. I was over at her house. I know that sounds weird to a lot of people.
No, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's all about forgiveness, and that's what we believe in here.
absolutely.
We understand how important it is
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
forgive. What about your father? Do you still have a relationship with your father as well?
Yeah, but it's a multi-dimensional relationship because he's no longer with us here.
Oh,
yeah,
okay, he passed on. Okay,
Yeah, he passed
and
on.
you're saying that now. How do your children, after hearing, because you've got a new book out, maybe you want to share the title of the book with everyone that's listening and watching.
Yeah, my book is called Suffering Ends When Awakening Begins. And it's really a powerful title because that's really the reality of stuff. Our suffering will end when we begin to awaken to who we really are.
Absolutely.
And once we awaken to who we really are, then we begin to understand we're this divine being with these powers and abilities that we have that we're born with.
Yep.
So we got to be able to learn that. So the reason why, going back to the other question, why we go through crisis in our life or go through troubled times, and I know this may be hard for people to understand, but going through crises in our life is an opportunity, or it's intended for us to awaken to who we really are.
No doubt about it.
Okay?
I am totally in agreement with that. I believe, bad things happen to good people, and it's a great opportunity for us to develop as people. Oh my God, the time went by so quickly, Robert. Can you believe it?
Man, bummer. It's over already?
Can you believe it? Oh my God, it was so great having you here. I'm just blown over by the fact that sometimes we hear that people have gone through great suffering, and you expect them to be broken and still disturbed and maybe in a mental hospital or something like that. But you have definitely, you are the epitome of what your book says. You have awakened, and it's good to know that you're doing all right, that your family's still together, and because a lot of times when trauma comes, families separate, and even in the midst of that, you're still hanging in together. So thanks for being with us, Robert. We're going to be talking to you real soon. All right? Coming right back in just a moment. This is the Carita Dee TV show. Bye, Robert.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get a life. Oh, girlfriend, get a life.
Be prepared. Get cash in case ATMs stop working after the hurricane.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. A girlfriend, get a life. Oh, girlfriend, get a life.
Well, you're back with me, Carita Dee. So glad that we had an awesome opportunity to meet someone who has obviously gone through a tremendous trials in their lives and have still managed to come out okay. I wanted to wrap up by saying tonight how sometimes you hear people reflect on their lives and they have various ways of expressing things. One of the things that came to my mind was a wonderful scripture which says, "Greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world." And sometimes when you hear people talk, basically that's what he's saying. He's saying, greater is he who is the divine one, the great one, the almighty God. He is the great I am, who is in me, guiding me through these things every day. Sometimes we don't think that we deserve it. Obviously, no one deserves to go through that kind of trauma. Who gets up with their life and says, you know what, I'm going to have my mom attempt to murder me, and then I'm just going to go ahead and have life so bad that I'm going to leave and go to Florida, and I'm going to be sexually abused, and I'm going to have to come back and go through all that treatment again. I'm going to be such a drifter that I won't go back to school, and I'm going to meet someone and then have them taken away from me almost instantaneously in an accident. I'm going to lose my best friend, and after that, if that isn't enough, you know, I'm going to go through more trauma where I'm homeless with my family, my wife and my 4 children. Who asked for that? Not one of us asked for those kinds of situations in our lives. But even though things happen to us, bad things happen to good people, where do we get the strength to take it from being a bad situation and taking it to be making it work for someone else for the better good? And I think that's what we say when all of us in the community can say all things work together for good for them that are called according to his purpose. Sometimes we don't see the good in something happening at the moment. Sometimes it looks incredibly, incredibly awful. And we can't even begin to think how something so awful could happen. A boy being sexually abused at a very, very ripe age. But yet, in the midst of all of that, in the midst of all the trials, in the midst of the separation from his parents, in the midst of him walking those lonely streets, in the midst of him sleeping on the road, in the midst of him sleeping in the beach or having his clothes stolen and being sexually abused by someone who threatened to help him, in the midst of all of that, God himself had a plan for him to be right here with us tonight, for us to sit down and reflect on our lives and say, wow, I might not have gone through all of that, but guess what? You know, he's helping a lot of us who are going through right now. Maybe what we want to do is just be thankful that we weren't there. Maybe what we want to do is reflect on our own stuff. All I can tell you is, girlfriend, just remember, get a life.
Sister, best friend or wife, the message is still the same. Girlfriend, get a life.